Hello, welcome back to the Jet Press Podcast. My name is Justin Fried, and I am joined, as always, by my good friend, Mike Luciano. Mike, roster cuts have gone. Today has been a busy day. Yesterday was an even busier day. How are you feeling today, buddy? What's going on?
Well, I feel bad for the guys that didn't make it, because Robert Saleh and Joe Douglas had to crush, 37 different sets of dreams
Yeah.
to get the roster down to 53 players. But there's been some really interesting moves, some stuff I didn't expect. We'll get into all of that, into what the new 53-man roster looks like ahead of the debut of the new and revamped New York Jets against the 49ers on Monday Night Football a couple weeks from now. And we'll go and check in around the league with some former Jets because a couple of them have new jobs, some understandable. One of them I just do not get at all. If you have not heard that, please do not look on social media right now because we want to be the ones to tell you it is ridiculous. But before we get into all that, you know where you can find us on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and Overcast, all that stuff. We're always there. And you can subscribe on YouTube. You can like the stream on YouTube. Those are big ways to support the show. Good ways to just show hey, keep making more of this good content. We will happily oblige. We will start with 53-man roster takes. And thanks to all this great newfangled gizmos we have visual aids.
I know. Look at this.
Thanks to a very neat color-coded roster in bright eye-gouging green from Justin Fried.
All right, I went green for Jets, but I didn't want to go too bright, or too dark.
It's like neon. But okay. Anyway, the neon players, the neon players, the green players are on the 53-man roster. The blue players are currently on a reserve list, like the non-football injury list or did not report. Cough, Hassan Reddick. And as of what we know right now, at time of writing, the pink players or the magenta purpley players are the practice squad guys because we only have a couple confirmed signings and there are 17 spots.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to do a little position by position thing here and kind of get I don't really think there's anything new to say about quarterback. I thought there was a chance they could keep 3 quarterbacks, especially with how Adrian Martinez performed in the preseason, but it looks like he got cut. He's probably going to be back on the practice squad, but nothing official there yet. He might go back to the UFL. We don't know. Running back surprised me because I did not think Israel Abanikanda was going to make this roster, and I guess he saved his bacon because he is on the final 53, the original 53, excuse me, and Xavier Valade, who had some nice moments, especially as a receiver in the preseason, he is on the practice squad. So Abanikanda, for now, lives to fight another day.
Yeah, I mean, Izzy earned it. He earned it. I think a lot of people, and myself included, were of the opinion that Izzy Abanikanda was fighting an uphill battle to make the 53. Dude had a really tough offseason. And I don't want to be too hard on the guy. We talked about him a lot, honestly, a lot for an RB4 over the last few months. I mean, he entered the draft as the de facto RB2 on the Jets, the only real backup behind Breece Hall. Then they draft Braylon Allen. They draft Isaiah Davis. Soon, Israel Abanikanda is finding himself behind 2 day 3 rookies on the depth chart. But he had a really good preseason. And I thought not only did he have a great preseason, but he showed a lot of development and showed a lot of growth from what he put on tape last year, specifically his power. I thought he was running really hard this summer. So I think that really impressed the Jets. Now, again, the caveat with all of this is that this is the initial 53-man roster. This is not necessarily the 53-man roster that the Jets will carry into week 1. I think there's still a chance they make a move here, and maybe if they need to free up a roster spot, which they actually do because they claim somebody today, we'll talk about that in a moment. But if they do need to free up a roster spot, I think Abanikanda could be one of the guys that they let go. But for now, he's on the 53. He deserves it. And I'm happy for him. I'm really happy for him because, like I said, really tough offseason for the guy. And then, quarterbacks, we haven't seen any moves there yet. I do imagine Adrian Martinez, unless he gets a better offer from another team, will be back on the practice squad. He did absolutely outplay Andrew Peasley this summer. Would love to keep him around as a developmental option. We'll see what's going on with Jordan Travis. I know that the term redshirt year keeps getting thrown around. I do think that he will be I would like to see him activated at some point during the season. It's going to depend on his rehab status and what's going on with that. But those practice reps are important. And I wouldn't like him just completely sit on the sideline for his rookie year. So it'd be nice if he was activated to the 53 at some point. But for now, the Jets are rolling with 2 quarterbacks. That does mean that they cannot take advantage of that third emergency quarterback rule. But that's okay. I'm not going to force that rule. I'm not going to force Martinez onto the 53. And I don't want to say waste the roster spot, but use a roster spot on him when you could use it elsewhere. So no issues there.
The main reason I was just high on Martinez was just I've been scarred from these freaking Jets in the last couple years because you'd think the QB3s aren't supposed to play. Backups don't play sometimes for the entire year. And
Yeah.
yet the Jets, they always cycle through 3-4 quarterbacks. So I'm a big proponent of have as many quarterbacks as you want. You never know when a Brock Purdy situation might happen. But logically, if you take the emotion and the history out of it, logically, it didn't really make sense to keep the 3, especially because the NFL kind of changed that rule around where you had to keep the third quarterback on your 53-man roster. So that way you can't just keep stashing them on the practice squad and then bringing them up every time. They kind of like tightened the language around that a couple of days before cut down day. So if there was a chance he was going to stay on the roster, I think that kind of eliminated that. But I think he'll be back. I think that he was one of the better QB3s out there in the preseason. So for what it's worth, he did everything he could with the opportunity he was given, which is that's all you can ask of somebody. Going to the wide receiver room, this was a little bit of a surprise because we've been talking about Brownlee and Irv Charles. Who would they keep? Brandon Smith had impressed, and they kept Irv Charles, and they kept Jason Brownlee, both of them. Brandon Smith, who I know you liked a lot, another UFL guy, he is on the practice squad, but Brownlee and Charles make it. Brownlee will likely be a seldom used wide receiver. Maybe he'll get in on special teams. I don't really know. I think he might. And then Irv Charles is exclusively a special teams guy. I know he's made some improvements at wide receiver, and he's a big guy. He's like 6'4", but this was a Brant Boyer pick. I know that he's kind of close to the chopping block. Like if they have to get rid of guys, like if Hassan Reddick comes back or Lecky Fodu or Kenny Yeboah comes off IR, he might be one of the guys who gets cut. But for now, with how good of a special teams coordinator Brant Boyer is, I'll let him have this one because the Jets need, I think, one more special teams wolf, as Robert Saleh calls him. And Brant Boyer loves him. I'll give you one guy to fight for out of 53, Brant Boyer. So I don't really have as much of a problem with the Irv Charles move.
Yeah, Brant Boyer has a lot of roster control, especially compared to most special teams coordinators in the NFL. He's probably got some of the most roster control out of any of them. And it's the reason why he's been around through 3 different regimes. He was there with Todd Bowles, he was there with Adam Gase, and now he's here with Robert Saleh because the dude's really good at his job, and he's really good at identifying talent. And one of those guys that they identified is Irv Charles, who really stepped up and filled in for Justin Hardy, who, by the way, was just released by the Browns in a somewhat surprising move. I'm not sure if he's going to be brought back there, but if he's not, I'm not opposed to a reunion. I mean, I know they have Irv Charles, who's younger in that role now, but hey, I mean, Hardy has a lot of fans in the building, so I know Brant Boyer definitely would be for it. But yeah, we're gonna see this roster tweaking a little bit over the next few days. There's gonna be a few moves here and there. I think Irv Charles is the most likely player here to get cut. I don't believe the Jets would have any concerns about him getting picked up off waivers. You never know, of course, but especially if it happens now, a day or so after final roster cuts, I don't think the Jets would be worried about him getting claimed by another team. So they could probably sneak him through to the practice squad and maybe elevate him for week 1 if need be. But yeah, you said it. I'm a big Brandon Smith fan. And if I was the one crafting this 53-man roster, Brandon Smith makes it over Jason Brownlee. I think Smith showed a lot more than Brownlee did this summer. I know why Brownlee made it. He has the experience. He has the track record with the regime. I mean, Brownlee has basically been their pet project for the last couple of summers. He was with them last year, ended up making the team because they were afraid to lose him. So I get why he made the team. Brandon Smith only joined the team, I'm pretty sure, this month. I think he was signed in early August. So he's only been under contract with the organization for a few weeks. But if you're looking at just based on merit, who outperformed who in the preseason, Brandon Smith was maybe the best receiver that the Jets had this summer. He was the only receiver or the only player in the NFL to haul in all, I think it was 4. I think he had 4 contested catch targets. The only wide receiver in the NFL to haul in 100% of his contested catch targets with a minimum of 4 attempts. He was fantastic. Like every single opportunity that he got, he smashed it. So I'm really glad they were able to sneak him through to the practice squad. It makes sense that they were able to sneak him through as opposed to someone like Brownlee, who might be on the radar of NFL teams a little bit more. Smith didn't play as much in the preseason. Brownlee got more reps. And Smith is a guy, again, he signed with an NFL roster for the first time, or at least, with the Jets for the first time a few weeks ago. So not surprised he didn't make the cut. But if we're going based on merit, I probably would have had him. I would expect Charles, or at least I would keep an eye on Charles. I do think that they might make a change there, especially because they did claim Brendan Bates, who we'll talk about in a moment, in their tight end room. They're going to have to make a move in the 53. If I were guessing right now, I think Irv Charles is that guy that gets cut.
Brandon Smith, to me, is a casualty of how when you're one of these fringe guys, sometimes just your name and your notoriety can help you. Even if he was an undrafted free agent this year, I think he's got a better shot of making it because he's fresh in people's minds. If he was maybe a 5-star recruit who never really got out of the starting block in college and maybe a take on it. This guy has been off and on practice squads for the last couple of years. He was with Dallas originally, then he went to Arizona, then he went to the UFL. He's a hard worker and a scrapper, but sometimes I feel like when it comes down to a couple things, I feel like pedigree can play a role. And fair or unfair, just or unjust, I feel like that happens sometimes. And Brandon Smith, unfortunately, got the short end of the stick here. And again, Brownlee has not been bad, quote unquote.
Yeah.
He's been better than he was, I think, because I don't think he was very good when he played last year. But I feel kind of bad for Brandon Smith because he did everything he could to make this team.
Yep. I think it's mostly a longevity thing. Like, I definitely, the pedigree matters too, but Brownlee has been with the roster. He's been with these coaches. They've gotten to know him over the past year and a half. Again, like I said, he has been their project. He is their developmental X receiver, the guy that they're hoping could basically take over Alan Lazard's role, and maybe even if he develops, take over Mike Williams' role in the future. That would be the ideal plan. I don't think he's, or at least I don't know if he's ever going to get to that spot. But Brandon Smith, they just brought in 3 weeks ago. The coaching staff has not gotten to know him very well. So even though what we saw in the preseason, he outperformed Jason Brownlee, there's a lot of other things. Politics come into play. A lot of stuff goes in behind the scenes that we don't always see. So I'm not surprised it happened. But like you said, he definitely did all he could to earn that roster spot. That's for sure.
And looking at tight ends, this one surprised me. When I heard they only kept 2, I know Yabo was on IR, but hearing only Conklin and Ruckert, I'm like, huh? Turns out they get a third guy, Brendan Bates. And Justin is a guy who pseudo predicted this with a Jet Press article this morning. Our resident Brendan Bates expert. Regale us with the tales of Brendan Bates.
Yeah, big Brendan Bates fan since I learned of his existence last night. Huge Brendan Bates fan. But no, I was doing a lot of research last night trying to see what guys the Jets could bring in, and Bates definitely stood out to me. He was I think he was PFF's highest rated rookie tight end this summer. Second amongst all tight ends in receiving yards. He had 6 catches for 100 yards. And looking at his background and his pedigree, he is a blocking tight end. First and foremost, he's a blocking tight end. Dude spent 6 years at Kentucky. He redshirted one of those years, I think, got a COVID exception for another one. So he was able to spend a lot of time at Kentucky. 6'4", 246 pounds. Also had a really good 40-yard dash and a good broad jump. So dude's athletic. He's a very good athlete for his size, but he never had a single season at Kentucky where he went over 100 yards for a season, in a season. Meanwhile, this preseason, he had 100 yards in just 3 games. So I think that right there kind of stood out to me and stood out to other teams where it's like, okay, he kind of made his living at Kentucky as a blocking tight end, as a really strong inline blocker. I mean, he started 12 of 13 games for Kentucky last year, despite the fact that he had 4 catches. So the guy was being used a lot, but he wasn't being used really as a receiver. They didn't really use him in that capacity. So
89 yards, though, he's a deep threat.
For 89, he averaged 22 yards per catch. He also averaged a lot. What is it? Whatever 100 divided by 6 is. He averaged that per catch this season.
Come on, Justin. 100 divided by 6.
I've been out of school for so long. 16, a little over 16 yards per catch. I haven't taken a math class since senior year of high school. Mike, I didn't even take a single math class.
This is like division.
Yeah, man, we got calculated. I don't need to do that shit. But yeah, he was someone that immediately stood out to me. It was like, all right, I see some untapped potential here. So obviously, you have the blocking traits already, but he might be able to show some stuff as a receiver as well. Was very, very happy when I saw that the Jets claimed him. It made sense. They were only carrying 2 tight ends on the roster. You figured a move was coming there. I thought it was possible that they might bring back Anthony Ferguson, and maybe they still do on the practice squad. Maybe they could have elevated him for week 1. Instead, they bring in Bates. He'll probably be active, I imagine, week 1, unless he can't learn the playbook in time. But I do like his upside. Also, at his pro day, he was also working out as a fullback. So that's another position that the Jets could try him at, fullback, H-back hybrid, which I don't think they want Ruckert in that role. I think they want Ruckert as that inline tight end 2 next to Tyler Conklin. That H-back, fullback role was really kind of going to be reserved for either Ferkser, Yeboah, or maybe now Brendan Bates. So I'm happy that he's here. That's a good pickup for the Jets, and I'm glad that I am a huge Brendan Bates fan after learning of his existence less than 24 hours ago.
I feel like Rutgers almost getting kind of Will McDonald did a little bit. It's like, when's he gonna start? When's he gonna be tight end one? There's just not a spot for him.
Yeah, I mean, ideally, if he develops next year, he'd be the starter because Conklin is a free agent at the end of the year. I very much like Tyler Conklin, but he's not getting any younger. And if you have Ruckert that could replace him, sure. I'd like to see more from Jeremy Ruckert to prove that he's capable of that, because as of right now, I don't know if this is a take that a lot of Jets fans would disagree with, but I don't think he's a very good tight end too, based on what we've seen from him. I think he's probably a below average backup tight end, and that's fine. It's not like it's not going to make or break the Jets season, but I'd like to
want to use a day 2 pick on that though.
Right. Yes. I mean, it also takes tight ends a few years to develop. I mean, Tyler Conklin, I don't think he started until his fourth or fifth year in the league. So takes tight ends sometimes, some time to develop sometimes. So we'll see what happens with Ruckert.
The offensive line, another surprise, 10 guys. I only thought they'd keep 9, but they keep 10. Tackle did not surprise me. I'm 5 for 5 there. Tyron Smith, Morgan Moses, Olufashinu, Carter Warren, Max Mitchell. Despite the struggles of Max Mitchell, he lives to fight another day. And then on the interior, John Simpson, Joe Tippmann, AVT, boom, 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 fine. Wes Schweitzer, yep. Xavier Newman was the surprise here. I did not have Xavier Newman. We did a bunch of roster projections. Did anybody have Xavier Newman making the 53? I didn't.
Yes, I did.
You did? Okay, so I was wrong there.
I definitely thought he was going to make it. I'm very happy.
I thought if he was going to make it, though, I wouldn't think they'd keep 5 tackles, but they seem to have kept both. This seems, again, like a scar of last year with just how quick they were running through guys to even, like, field an offensive line to just get 5 players out there. That was a challenge sometimes. They literally were pulling guys off the street, Chris Glazer. That's what they were doing. So I think this is the guard against that. I mean, we've seen Newman's not particularly – he's not going to be, Randall McDaniel on the inside, but he had some moments.
I think Xavier Newman was quietly one of the most impressive standouts from the preseason. He had a really, really good summer. And that gave me a lot more faith that he could be an NFL caliber backup interior lineman. Plus, he obviously has that guard center versatility. I thought going into the summer, Jake Hansen might have been the guy that got this job, but unfortunately, he suffered an injury, missed a few weeks, missed the first 2 preseason games. So they did bring him back into practice squad. He is one of, I believe, 6 veterans that they can sign to their practice squad. So I'm glad that they were able to keep him around. He's a good, young, versatile piece as well. Newman, I'm happy he made it. And I thought he would. I thought he definitely deserved it. Honestly, if you're making any cut with this offensive line, I'd probably get rid of Max Mitchell. I don't think you need the 5 tackles. And Mitchell was clearly working behind the others for at least in the preseason. I mean, he played, I think, the entire second half or close to it of that last preseason game. So I thought there was a chance he might have been on the roster bubble anyway. But yeah, if you're making any move with that offensive line, I'm probably getting rid of him. I did expect them to carry 10 offensive linemen, though. And then in the practice squad, you got Jake Hansen. You got another guy who I thought was a very under-the-radar standout from the summer, which was Cole Lavayo. They signed him from the UFL. Gave him a pretty large deal for a UFL player back in June, I think it was. So very happy that they were able to bring him back and keep him around in the practice squad. I know he had offers from other teams as well. I was directly told that. So I'm very glad that he was able to stick around with the Jets and that the Jets were able to keep him on the practice squad.
I do kind of – I don't know about feel bad, but, like, just what happened to Max Mitchell? He was – rookie year, he was okay looking, right?
I think fans –
like, you saw stuff, though, right? You saw stuff. Last year, you saw nothing.
I do think he was better as a rookie. I also think that it was a situation where he got a little bit overhyped. It was like, he was obviously put in a really difficult position. He was a 4th-round pick who was starting week 1. This is a guy the Jets never expected to play as a rookie, and he was suddenly forced into a starting role, and he didn't completely shit the bed. So fans were like, oh, man, he's good. He was bad. Like, he was still bad, but what do you expect? And then last year, he was really – well, first of all, he came back from, I believe he had that serious blood clot issue. So I'm not sure how much that affected him, but he also was being shuffled around between left tackle and right tackle. They played him at guard as well. So, I mean, the entire Jets offensive line last year was a recipe for disaster, like all of it combined with all the injuries they had. So he's here. He's still around. He's still a versatile piece. They can play him at guard. I don't want them to play him at guard, but he's there. He's a former 4th-round pick. So if you're a 4th-round pick as an offensive lineman in such an offensive line starved league, it's really tough to get cut unless you're absolutely garbage.
To be there, the goal of every great football player.
Yeah.
So Now it's the talk of the town. Now it's the big thing because this defensive line, currently, there are 12 people who are contracted to play defensive line for the New York Jets.
Yep.
Now, one of them's hurt, Lecky Fodu, and one of them is in the middle of the woods somewhere, Hassan Reddick. We don't know where he is.
Hey, no, he posted that video. He's working out. He posted that video.
Oh yeah, one workout video. That gives me confidence.
I do love how it's like a leverage battle between the two, and that's like their perspective on like, we're going to try and get leverage by posting this video. Clearly, he's ready to. I don't know. I thought that was very funny. It's like a little behind the scenes battle, and that's
the Jets were saying we got 10 linemen, many of whom are very good. We'll roll with this because we were really wringing our hands and pulling our hair out trying to figure out which of these undrafted free agent guys would end up lasting because they had 3 of them. And they were all really good. There was Eric Watts, there was Braden McGregor, and there was Leonard Taylor. McGregor, more traditional pass rusher. Watts, kind of like a hybrid-y Michael Clemensy guy. And Taylor, more a pass-rushing interior defensive tackle. We figured Todd McKinley makes it, and he did. So the Todd McKinley comeback is complete. And then we're wondering, well, how does this shake out with the other guys? They kept them all. And I think the Jets did that out of fear because they knew there was no chance they were keeping these guys if they went to waivers. Now, looking at this, though, if you just look at these 3, Taylor, McGregor, Watts, I feel like if you had to rank them in terms of performance and probably likelihood to stick around, I think I just did it. I think Taylor, being a defensive tackle, just dominating that Giants game. Being a very well-regarded prospect before that, and as I mentioned, Justin, before the show, a 5-star recruit. You always take chances on 5-star recruits who didn't work out. Sometimes it just doesn't click for them athletically until they're in their early 20s. Maybe a click for him. I know that he's playing in his traditional position again, kind of like a Will McDonald thing, because they had him playing basically nose tackle his last year at Miami. Now he's moving more to that Quinnen Williams-y inside pass rusher role. I think he is not a lock because it's an undrafted free agent, but I think he'll stick around for a little bit. McGregor impressed me. I thought Watts would have been ahead of McGregor just because they gave Watts so much guaranteed money, but McGregor just showed so much skill, for lack of a better, rushing the passer because he's not the fastest guy. He's not too big. I mean, he was a pretty productive player on a Michigan team that gave up like 4 points all year and won the national title, and he didn't get drafted. So that should tell you what the team thought of him just athletically and as a guy. He performed great. You got to keep him. And then Watts, again, really good, couple sacks in the preseason, but unfortunately, there's going to be some guys coming off IR. There's going to be maybe some signings the Jets make elsewhere. If they have to get rid of one guy, I don't know if this will be the Brendan Bates move, but I feel like he is on the least steady ground, for lack of a better word, of those 3.
Yeah, I would agree with that. As Brian said in chat here, the Jets have 7 former first-round picks on that defensive line, that being, of course, Jermaine Johnson, Will McDonald, Tack McKinley, Hassan Reddick when he joins the 53, Quinnen Williams, Javon Kinlaw, Solomon Thomas. That's absurd. Most teams carry like 9 defensive linemen. The Jets have 7 former first-round picks just on their D-line. 3 more just on their defense in general if you throw in C.J. Mosley, Sauce Gardner, and now Lewis Seen, who joins the practice squad. Just an embarrassment of riches, like a complete embarrassment of riches. And I'm honestly, the coolest thing to me, like the most awesome part about these guys making the team, which, by the way, somebody got a fine for me the last time that 3 undrafted players in the same position group all made a 53-man roster. It couldn't have been any time very recent, at least.
And with a good team. This ain't the Panthers.
Right. And not only a good team, like arguably their strongest position group, like one of their strongest position groups too, 3 undrafted players making that position group is crazy. But again, the coolest part to me is like, we kind of saw this coming, Mike, and a lot of people did. I found a tweet that I put out back in April 22nd, right when the Jets signed Taylor, McGregor, and Eric Watts. I said the Jets somehow coming away with 3 projected day 3 defensive linemen as UDFAs is nuts. The camp battle between Leonard Taylor, Braden McGregor, and Eric Watts is going to be so fun. These guys are sticking around. I bet multiple make the 53-man roster. Boy, was I right. I didn't think all 3 of them would make it, though. That's for damn sure. All 3 of them making it is crazy. Not to mention Tack McKinley, a guy who was a rookie, or as a rookie, not a rookie minicamp tryout, a minicamp tryout back in June. They only brought him in because of his familiarity with Jeff Ulbrich. Ulbrich keeps tabs on a lot of former Falcons players, so he hit him up, and they brought McKinley in for a tryout. And he earned his way onto this roster. I'm so happy for him.
Tack played 4 games in 2 years. I mean, this is a comeback.
Yeah. He didn't play last year at all. Played 3 or 4 games the year before that. He has not been a regular part of the rotation since 2021. Like that's ridiculous. Or 2021. So it's just really, really cool that they were all able to make the team. And like you said, Mike, we were talking for a while. We're like, how are they going to keep these guys? Who are they going to end up losing? Well, I think it was out of fear. I think you're absolutely correct because the Jets knew that if they cut Leonard Taylor, he's getting claimed. They knew if they cut Braden McGregor, he's getting claimed. They knew if they cut Eric Watts, there's a really good chance he gets claimed. So they just kept them all on the roster. Now, when Hassan Reddick does return, which I don't know if we're going to talk about that much today, but I still do believe that he will be on the roster come week 1. And I think that it will be by early next week. I think by the time that we are doing our Wednesday show next week, Hassan Reddick will be on the week 1 roster. We will see if I look like an idiot, but that is going to be my prediction. And if that happens, they're probably going to make a D-line move. And they're probably going to cut Eric Watts. That would be my guess right now, just based on merit. Again, Braden McGregor and Leonard Taylor outplayed him. And I thought Watts had a really good summer. I feel like he was a little or very overshadowed because he didn't have the flashy plays that McGregor and Taylor did. But especially in that Giants game, I thought Watts was really, really impressive. And the Jets have been high on Watts for a while. They gave him the most guaranteed money of any undrafted player that they signed this summer. And I feel like they kind of see him as somebody who can maybe step up and fill in that John Franklin Myers role as that tweener with pass rush upside, which you don't really get that from Michael Clemens. He is kind of that tweener, but they really see him as more of a run defender. I think Watts has pass rush upside that Clemens doesn't. And so I'd love for them to keep him around, whether on the active roster or practice squad, to develop. But yeah, man, you couldn't cut Braden McGregor after the summer that he had, and you definitely couldn't cut Leonard Taylor after the summer that he had, because just an awesome landing spot for them too. Because I think that's the other part about this. So much credit should be going to Joe Douglas and the scouting department, but also to Robert Saleh, Aaron White, Cotton, this entire Jets defensive staff, because the Jets are the landing spot if you are a defensive lineman. Whether you are a defensive lineman trying to rehabilitate your career, like Javon Kinlaw, whether you're a defensive lineman trying to make it back to the NFL, like Tack McKinley, or whether you're a young defensive lineman like Braden McGregor, Eric Watts, or Leonard Taylor, just trying to make it into the NFL in the first place, the Jets are the place to go, because the track record that Robert Saleh and Aaron White, Cotton, and this entire defensive staff have of developing defensive linemen is next to none. Like it's incredible. So I just credit to them. Credit to the staff, credit to the coaching staff, and the scouting department, of course, for finding these guys. It's awesome. It is really, really cool to see the 3 undrafted rookies make the Jets defensive line.
We've supported Robert Saleh, I think, more than most vocal Jets outlets have. Yeah. And again, you're allowed to criticize Robert. It is your right as an American to criticize Robert Saleh if you feel that way.
It is your right as a football fan to criticize your head coach. That is
what is inarguable. And you are not allowed, I forbid it, as verboten, is to say Robert Saleh doesn't know defensive talent. Because this guy, whatever you think as a coordinator or as a coach, he can find defensive talent in the middle. Tack McKinley was playing in God knows where. I thought he was retired when they gave him a trade. To be perfectly honest, I thought he retired. Eric Watts out of UConn. Leonard Taylor, 5-star recruit who never really was playing nose tackle. Saleh knew he was out of position, taking the risk on McDonald. Jermaine Johnson, even the year leap from year 1 to year 2. Bryce Huff, Memphis designated pass rusher, $251 million player.
Technically, Huff was Gase because that was 2020 was his first year, right? But he was developed by Saleh for sure.
Yeah, he was sticking around in the practice squad, not doing anything. Saleh turns him into a productive player, especially the defensive line. Find me guy outside of maybe Pete Jenkins, who's like the famous defensive line coach that everybody goes to talk to. Outside of him, find me a guy right now that's on a better heater in terms of finding star defensive talent than defensive line talent than Robert Saleh. He's great at it. That's what we'll fire Saleh. You like this defense? It's pretty good, ain't it? You know why it's good? Because he keeps finding good defensive talent and helping them. And I know there's guys like Sauce and even Jermaine or first round pick. I know that they hit on Sauce was a can't miss guy. You can see him from space being a good cornerback. Like obviously that's not necessarily Saleh's keen defensive eye, but at this Quincy Williams,
Michael Carter,
the second, 5th round pick. Tony Adams was undrafted.
Yes,
this guy knows what he's doing. And you can't just hire some 37-year-old offensive coordinator who was sniffing Sean McVay and Kyle Shanahan's butt for 2 years. They're not going to know defensively to how to create a unit like this.
Yeah. And it goes hand in hand because Robert Saleh and because Aaron Whitecotton and this Jets defensive staff have that reputation. That's why they're able to get those guys. That's why they're able to sign Eric Watts, Braden McGregor, and Leonard Taylor. It's not like
all those guys had options
exactly
for other teams, and they all said, even with the other people, I want to go to the Jets.
It's not like the Jets plucked them out of obscurity. This isn't like I think you can give the scouting department a lot more credit for somebody like a Brandon Codrington, who was a guy who was a return man at NC Central, at HBCU school. Didn't really do much as a corner, was basically just a returner. They bring him in for a rookie minicamp tryout. He makes the team, and they end up flipping him for an asset. You could definitely credit the coaching or the scouting department with that one. Where it comes to Watts, McGregor, and Taylor, I mean, these guys were known commodities. Sure, they went undrafted, but like you said, McGregor was a starter for the defending national champs. Eric Watts was a projected day 3 pick. Leonard Taylor was a 5-star recruit and was seen as a possible first-round pick not that long ago. Like a year ago.
Mocks in October, November, he was like high round 2.
Yes, there were literally mocks being published in December that still had Leonard Taylor going in the first round. So it's not like these guys were plucked out of obscurity. They chose the Jets because they believed that was their best option going forward in their future. And you can't blame them. And so that's the impact of the staff goes beyond even just developing these guys. It's the reputation that they have. It's that defensive guys want to sign here. We'll talk about the safeties in a moment, but Lewis Cine, another example. I am sure, I will guarantee you that Lewis Cine had other opportunities to sign with other teams' practice squads. Why did he choose the Jets? Because because I think there's a clear path to potential playing time there in a pretty weak position group. But 2, because Robert Saleh is held in high regard. Because Tony Oden, Marquand Manuel, they're held in very high regard around the league. So, again, we're not going to sit here and just the point of this isn't to say that Robert Saleh is the best head coach of all time, obviously. But the point is to say that just this Jets defensive coaching staff deserves a lot of credit for bringing these guys in and developing them too. And we can go on. Quincy Williams is another guy who they plucked out of obscurity. Dude was claimed off waivers. John Franklin Myers, another one. The list goes on. I'm hoping that Braden McGregor, Eric Watts, Leonard Taylor, at least a couple of those guys, if not all of them, are the next success stories for this Jets defensive staff.
Before we move on, like the reason I'm banging on this so much with Saleh and all that is because the last 2 coaches the Jets have had couldn't get their side of the ball right. Todd Bowles was a defensive coach. Didn't they go like 7 weeks without getting an interception or something like that?
That was also during the time where they went like over a couple of years without getting a defensive touchdown. I think it was like 3 years, something like that.
Exactly.
Pick 6 in that Lions game was the first one.
And that was the defensive coach. Adam Gase, do I even need to say what happened offensively with him? Saleh is a defensive guy, and his defense is excellent. So I at least know that he knows what he's doing. The other guys, I didn't. That gives me confidence. Moving on, linebackers, nothing particularly crazy. I know that you might be a little surprised that Zaire Barnes ended up making the 53 because you had talked about how he was really on the fringe, but they keep him. It seems like obviously Mosley and Williams are the starters. Sherwood's the main backup, and then Chaz Surratt, former quarterback.
Yes.
In college, Chaz Surratt. Wasn't his brother a receiver too?
Sage Surratt, right?
Sage Surratt. Yeah, I wonder what's up with him.
I think he went to Wake Forest, Sage Surratt, right?
He did go there. He is currently
I guess the UFL.
He converted a tight end at 215 pounds, and the Cardinals just cut him. So
well, it's probably the UFL soon.
Yeah, so Surratt makes the Jet, and then Zaire Barnes. Those are going to be special teams guys. No real surprises here. Nothing really of note, unless I think you got anything to add.
No, I'm not. I'm not surprised Zaire Barnes made it. I thought that he had a really good summer. Really, really impressed me in the preseason. I think that he's made some strides from where he was a year ago. It's still going to take him earning the Jets' trust on special teams to be active because he was only active for 4 games last year, and it was the only 4 games that Chaz Surratt missed. So if Zaire Barnes is going to be active, it's going to have to be through special teams. But I'm glad they're keeping him around as a developmental piece. I would like to see him follow a similar trajectory to Jamie Sherwood, who I forget if I've said this on the show before. I think Sherwood might be one of the most underrated players on the roster because people don't realize how good he is because he never gets the opportunity. But every time I've seen this dude, he has shown me he can play at a high level. I think he's a starting caliber NFL linebacker, and we just haven't seen it yet. So if maybe Zaire Barnes could follow that similar trajectory, that'd be pretty cool. I am fairly confident that they're going to bring back Sam Aguavin on the practice squad. He played in 15 games last year, was a core special teamer, so I would keep an eye out there. Other than that, maybe like a Marcelino McQuarrie Ball gets brought back. I don't know, on the practice squad. But yeah, no real surprises there.
And then going to defensive backs, I'm happy to see Quantez Stiggers and Jar Bernard Converse, both of them made it for special teams and for defensive back play. Like, I think right now, obviously, I think the depth chart is kind of what you see there. Sauce, Reed, Carter, Eccles, probably the dime guy. But Quantez, by the end of the year, I think might be the dime guy. And you know what? I'm gonna make a declarative statement. By the end of the year, he'll be the dime cornerback over Jar Bernard Converse. But again, honestly, JBC, he was really good. Maybe the best defensive back, I think, in the preseason.
I agree.
Who, after an injury-filled rookie year, I think kind of saved his ass a little bit and really showed the Jets that you need to keep me around. I'm not just a cannon fodder. I'm an actual player here. Safety is a weird one. They kept all the guys I thought they would keep, even Isaiah Oliver, the convert, who I'm not particularly high on as a player overall, but seemed like they were going to keep him come hell or high water. Jalen Key, this year's Mr. Irrelevant, practice squad guy, kind of figured. And then Lewis Cine. Yeah. Lewis Cine was a first-round pick just 2 years ago by the Vikings in 2022 with the last pick of the first round. Guess how many tackles he has in the NFL, Justin?
Oh, I know he's played 10 games. Does he have like 2 tackles?
One.
Wow.
1 tackle.
It's such a story.
Part of that, not his fault at all. He had a horrific leg injury very early on in his career. I think he was on punt coverage. Very, very bad knee injury. Really messed him up. And I think the Vikings just got done with all the health problems and they got other safeties. They're just like, all right, enough. We'll take the L on Lewis Cine. But when he was coming out of Georgia, what a frightening player. I mean, he would just annihilate people when he'd hit him. And he was a legitimate first-round pick. Like, when he went, I know a lot of guys had him as like a day 2 guy, early day 2. I don't think anybody was shocked. I don't think anybody's like, oh, the Vikings, what a huge reach. I mean, Cine was a really good player. Obviously, those Georgia teams the last couple of years, we know how good defensively they are and how well those players translate to the NFL. Unless this is like a D. Milliner thing where every player from a stacked defense who wins a title is great in the NFL except him, and you don't know why he's the only one where it didn't work out. Unless that happens, I would honestly like to see Cine get time over Isaiah Oliver. And if one of the other guys above him starts faltering, which is entirely possible, Tony Adams started off very bad last year, and Chuck Clark's coming off an ACL injury. I'm going to say Achilles injury, ACL injury. Wouldn't surprise me at all if Cine got regular snaps.
Cine is somebody who Robert Saleh is going to fall in love with. Like, I'm so confident. Just the way he plays. He has like a similar like Chaz Surratt mindset where dude just hits. Like, he runs 110% every time he is running. And he was a really, really fun player to watch at Georgia. It is unfortunate how his career is unfortunately gone. That leg injury, I believe, was a compound leg fracture, required multiple surgeries. It cost him his entire rookie season, essentially. I think he got hurt in like week 3 or week 4. And then last year did come back in the middle of the season, didn't really play a ton, was basically only on special teams. And like you said, I think the Vikings he fell down the depth chart and really just fell out of favor with the organization because they had other guys that they're focusing on. And, it's unfortunate. I'm not sure if he's ever going to get back to his pre-injury self, but this is the type of player that you want to take a flyer on. Like, this is exactly who you take a flyer on. And from what it sounds like, I think he's going to be elevated to the active roster pretty quickly. Once he learns the playbook, I would not be surprised if he's up on the active roster week 2, week 3, whether that's an elevation or whether that's a full-on promotion to the 53. Very, very happy with that pickup. And again, that's going back to what we were saying. I'm sure Lewis Cine had other offers from other teams. He chose the Jets because there is a clear path to playing time because, while Chuck Clark, Tony Adams, Ashton Davis, I think is a fine safety trio, it's definitely below average. And it's without a doubt the weakest position group on this defense. And I don't think the Jets have a single safety that is under contract through this, like after this season. So there is a path for playing time for Lewis Cine if he can impress. And I'm very happy that they brought him in. As for the cornerbacks, I put Stiggers ahead of Bernard Converse just for now because I think he has a better chance of being active strictly because of special teams. And this was what I was saying about Irv Charles before. I would have been fine letting Irv Charles go because while he's a really good gunner, I thought Eccles and Stiggers did a really good job as gunners in the preseason. And I do think Charles is better than them in that regard, but I don't know if I'm going to use a roster spot in a guy who is basically only a gunner and is only marginally better than other gunners that you have who also play other positions. So that's my take on that. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised at all if it's either Stiggers or Bernard Converse who eventually takes over that dime back role. And again, we've talked about this before. Maybe they could push for a starting role in 2025 because DJ Reed is a free agent. I am very much not confident the Jets bring him back. If they can replace him internally, that would be awesome.
And I don't think there's really any special team surprises, right?
You don't want to talk Austin Seibert?
Nah. I do feel bad though for Shamar Bartholomew and Brandon Codrington. Not bad for Codrington because he ended up going to Buffalo, which is a good situation. But Shamar Bartholomew got claimed by Carolina, so he's got to go start the bottom again.
I mean, it's a really good landing spot for him. Carolina has a lot of open roster spots. Obviously, they claimed, I think, 6 dudes. Their roster is very, very thin. So it's a really good landing spot for him. He was great this summer. We don't have to harp on it too much, but he had a really good summer. Unfortunately, just a ridiculously stacked cornerback room. He just was never going to be able to crack it. And in Codrington, again, I know Jets fans are upset that the Jets traded him to the Bills, but you think of it from the perspective of you were able to acquire an asset for a guy who you signed as a rookie minicamp tryout from an HBCU school who was just a return man. Like, that is crazy. You got an asset for that guy. That should be celebrated. And I'm happy for Codrington getting an opportunity on a 53-man roster because he had a really good summer.
So let's move on to talking about some Jets that are bouncing around the league. A couple former Jets finding themselves in the news. Let's start with the big name with Dalvin Cook.
Yeah.
Because I will happily, not happily, but look, I as soon as it came out, I'm like, look, I was banging the Dalvin Cook drum for a while. I'm like, this will be fine. Don't worry about it. Immediately proved me wrong. I'm like, okay, you're wrong sometimes. You admit when you're wrong. You move on. Apparently, I thought everybody else thought that Dalvin Cook was washed. Apparently not the Cowboys, who signed him now. They signed to the practice squad, but they're eventually going to elevate him. I know it's a committee thing that they're doing with Ezekiel Elliott, who's also kind of washed, less washed than Dalvin Cook by a mile, but still kind of. And Rico Dowdle, who's okay. But if they think Dalvin Cook is going to be some sort of transformative piece, it baffles me. And really quick, Justin, because I like this guy, shame on Tom Pelissero.
Oh, those tweets were crazy.
For the way he never got a chance. He's a difference-making signing. I'm like, I know that these guys got to suck up to agents to like get the information. I get that. That was embarrassing. Come on, man.
There was a Florio tweet that I retweeted. I don't always agree with obviously everything Florio says. He's a character for sure.
Was that tweet Aaron Rodgers' fault somehow?
Yeah, right. And that's yes. No, it wasn't, but Florio might think it is. But he said, I know that the folks who traffic in breaking news 5 minutes before it's officially announced need to suck up to the agents who spoon feed it to them. But sometimes the gratuitous praise for the player and or the agent does get a little ridiculous. And that was tweeted out moments after the Tom Pelissero tweet, calling Dalvin Cook a marquee addition. He also referred to him as one of the top free agents remaining on the market.
He's one of the free agents remaining.
Yes, and said that, like you said, he never got into a groove with the Jets, and
probably because he sucked. It's hard to get in a groove when you suck.
The best.
You know what? You ever Justin? Me and you are writers. You know, sometimes words just start flowing. And you can type really fast. It's because we're good writers.
Maybe
if you suck. It's hard to get into a groove.
Yes, and my favorite part about that Pelissero tweet was him saying that not only did he not get into a groove with the Jets, but then in parentheses after that, he said, but he had a long run with the Ravens in the postseason.
A singular run of, what was it, 15 yards or something?
19 yards. And you know how many yards Dalvin Cook finished that game with? 23 on 7 other carries. He finished with 4 more yards on those 7 carries. But he had a 19-yard run through a wide open hole. Oh, he's not washed.
The Ravens' backup running back is hurt, and their other one is Justice Hill. They could have easily used him, and they went, nope. Bye-bye.
It's the most Jerry Jones edition of all time. Like, this is the most Jerry Jones signing. This entire offseason, he's like, all right, how are we going to fix the running back room? Oh, my God, Ezekiel Elliott's available? Let's bring him back. He's great. Dalvin Cook's available? Oh, my God, we're going to have the best running back room in 2020. Let's do this.
It sucks for Cowboys fans. I feel like he's been doing that less now. Like the just go get the star thing. I feel like he's doing that probably because of the way money works out. Like, he's not just like, let me get a big name. He's not doing that as much anymore. But I mean, this is a mistake.
Kinda. But then also they brought in Linval Joseph to replace Neville Gallimore. They brought in Eric Kendricks to replace Leighton Vander Esch. Like, I feel like it's just 2019. Jerry Jones
is that times 3 though.
It is. But Jerry Jones is like stuck in 2019, stuck in 2020. He's just stuck in the past. But yeah, Dalvin Cook is beyond washed. It was Buffalo Jets fan on Twitter said it was a really good quote. I said that he was washed. He said that he's not washed. He is dry cleaned. Which, yes, he is more than washed. Dalvin Cook was
drowning.
Washed.
That's how washed
Yeah,
he is.
Dalvin Cook was washed before the Jets signed him. I know we had disagreements on that before the addition happened, but this is a guy who was dead last in rushing yards over expected in his last year at the Vikings. I know he had the box score numbers. I don't give a shit. I don't give a shit if he had the box score numbers. His metrics sucked. If you watched him play, he wasn't very good. He had a few explosive runs that very much inflated his yards and his yards per carry. He was not very good. And for as bad as he was with the Vikings in his last year, oh my God, he was so much worse with the Jets. Like he was.
It was a Lazard thing. Like even if you didn't like it, no one thought that would happen.
Yeah, I thought he was washed. I didn't think he would be that unplayable. He was horrific, like genuinely horrific with the Jets. He didn't lead the league in rushing yards over expect, or lead the league in fewest rushing yards over expected, only because he didn't play enough. But he did lead the league in rushing yards over expected per carry. You know, he was lowest. He ranked dead last in rushing yards over expected per carry. He was terrible. He was unplayable with the Jets. You can grab an undrafted rookie off the street, and 95% of them probably gonna be better than Dalvin Cook at this stage. He just has name value, and that's all Jerry Jones is caring about right now. So, whatever, man. Thankfully, I've seen the majority of Cowboys fans being like, "Oh, he's washed." I think people understand he's washed. There's a few that are still like, "Oh, he didn't get a chance. That Jets O-line was bad last year. Didn't really matter to Breece Hall, who was top 4 in scrimmage yards." But I digress.
But like, why do people believe that all right, you know, the Jets offense, like, why do people believe that it does, like, Dalvin Cook is still washed and Dalvin Cook won't be good away from the Jets, but a guy like a Zach Wilson or Sam Darnold will be? Like, why does it only work for some guys?
I think it's always a case by case basis, but the leash for quarterbacks I think is a lot larger, especially for young quarterbacks. People will hold out hope that young quarterbacks will be good for a very, very, very long time. I mean, there's Trey Lance believers and defenders out there right now, and he's just had a very unfortunate career path at this point. But
I mean, he did throw 5 picks in a preseason game. Career path being what it is.
I feel like if you were to find a quarterback who had the absolute worst possible development trajectory, it's Trey Lance. Like I don't know if you could find somebody who's been put in
his leg blowing up his sophomore year didn't help. But
yeah, I mean he's barely played. He's barely even gotten a chance to develop. But you still have people defending him. You still have people defending Zach Wilson, because that's just what's going to happen. That is always going to happen with young quarterbacks. So maybe that explains it. I don't know. And also just the Jets are seen as a place quarterbacks go to die. So I think that reputation helps any young quarterback that leaves the Jets.
Here's a guy I feel bad for, though. Poor Michael Carter, who was cut by the Jets last year.
Yeah.
Was claimed by the Cardinals, who were one of the worst teams in the league at the time. And then the Cardinals kept James Conner, and they drafted Trey Benson, who I thought was RB1. So he's the third string running back. This I feel bad for him, because Jonathan Gannon, who I originally defended a lot, and I felt like got a lot of unfair crap from like salty Eagles fans because he had like a top 10 defense all year. And then, oh my God, he played bad against Patrick Mahomes and suddenly he's stupid. But Jonathan Gannon said that he did not play Michael Carter in his final preseason game because he, quote, showed me all that he needed to show me. And then they cut him. Oh. That's cold. Like he thought he made the team, and that's pretty cold. So I hope just for that somebody else picks him up on like a practice squad deal, because that's harsh.
That's what Jets fans were hoping was going to happen with Michael Clemens. That was the 300 or IQ plays that Jets fans thought the Jets were doing with Michael Clemens. Like, oh, they're sitting him out in the last game because they know they're going to cut him, and it's like, no, that's not going to happen. Apparently, it happened with the Cardinals and Michael Carter, but. Mike, do you remember when the Jets drafted Breece Hall? I put out a tweet about this yesterday, but you remember when the Jets drafted Breece Hall?
Take Malik Willis.
And a lot of people freaked out. Oh my God, dude.
He just got traded to the Titans, by the way. So
right, because holy shit.
Good pick there, Titans.
Right. But remember when the Jets drafted Breece Hall? Aside from the Malik Willis comment from PFF George, who is no longer with PFF.
It's so funny. Whenever I hear Breece Hall or Malik Willis, that's the first thing I think of.
And that's going to follow that guy for the rest of his career. And I want to say that's unfortunate, but also, dude, you were an asshole. Like that was.
And he got let go from PFF because there's a lot of.
Yes, I remember seeing that too. But do you remember when the Jets drafted Breece Hall? And the other narrative, not the narrative about that necessarily. Actually, I believe he mentioned that when he was talking about PFF George. But the narrative was, why would they draft Breece Hall? They already have Michael Carter. Isn't that a really funny narrative to look at? To look back on and say, wow, people are idiots. And I remember not thinking that at the time, because I wasn't like against the Breece Hall pick. I was like, holy shit, they drafted Breece Hall. But people weren't expecting it, because they had Michael Carter, and we saw Michael Carter show promise as a rookie, and we're like, hey, he's the starting running back. He's the guy. And then they draft Breece Hall, and people are like, whoa, what are they doing? They already got Michael Carter. Now Breece Hall is arguably the second best running back in the NFL, and Michael Carter is unfortunately not on a roster just 2 years later.
Poor Michael. You know who is on a roster, though? Our buddy Mike White.
Oh, I thought you were going to say a different quarterback. Okay, we'll talk about
our buddy Mike White to Buffalo.
Yes.
Who I'm happy about.
A practice squad
guy. All right, I'm happy with Mike White. Nothing really there. Backup, getting a backup job. Fine. As a result of the Mike White move, because Skylar Thompson's now the backup. Oh, well, the Dolphins need a third quarterback.
Oh, buddy. Oh.
They have signed Tim Boyle.
How?
I can't believe Tim Boyle. 6 teams. And I don't want to hear shit about, well, he's got the job with the Jets. Aaron Rodgers is his buddy. 4 teams. You count 1, 2, 3, 4 teams have now signed him. Like, Quattro teams have signed him with that don't have Aaron Rodgers. The Bears, the Lions, the Texans, the Dolphins. What is it? Because Justin, how many quarterbacks with a similar physical profile, set of skills, all that stuff? How many guys are out there, free agents right now, like 20, that could be a competent quarterback? Why him? Why him and Nathan Peterman? Why is it those two? Why is it like, I know Desmond Ridder is terrible. Why is it that like he and Tim Boyle are considered the same amount of quarterback? Because they're not the close, and Desmond Ridder's not good, and he's 5 times better than Tim. But like it's why him? And we've seen mediocre quarterbacks bounce around a lot. I mean, how long has Blaine Gabbert been a backup in this league, and he stinks? Remember Ryan Griffin? He was an old quarterback with I think the Bucks, and he was a 3rd string guy for like 7-8 years. Yeah. Charlie Batch with the Steelers for like 11. Like that, we get that this. I know Charlie Batch is a lot better than Tim Boyle is, but like, what is it about him specifically? There's got to be something. He has 16 touchdowns, 11 of which came in an FCS year where he went 4-7 and threw more picks than touchdowns. That's 11 of his 16 touchdowns. 16 touchdowns and 38 interceptions since he started his college career. Well, he must be a winner. Do you know what his record as a starting quarterback is?
Not good.
If you combine UConn and Eastern Kentucky, because apparently that was too bright for him, his starting record is 4-20.
Oh.
And all 4 of them came at Eastern Kentucky. Because he went 0-8 at UConn and 0-4 in the pros. I know we always got dirt on somebody, but like, I know that's not obviously the case, but like, what? I don't get it. And it infuriates me. It really, I don't get it. And that's why I'm spending so much time on this, because I just feel like Sherlock Holmes, like there's like a clue I'm missing that would make it all make sense. But I don't get it because it defies all logic. And if they're building quarterback rooms based on he's a good teammate, then we're lost. If that's how quarterback rooms on contenders are decided.
He can't keep getting away with it, Mike. Like he just
but he is.
He can't keep getting away with this. He'll
get another job next year.
How does this keep happening? I mean, when he signed with the
Dolphins
Texans,
of all teams,
the
team that what do we call it? The Hail Mary that he threw?
Yes, literally against
of
them.
all the teams.
They saw how horrific he was, and they still signed him. I don't know, man. I'm at the point where I'm not. I think going into the show, I was mad, or I don't know why it made me mad, but I was just like flabbergasted.
Well, because there's so many guys who deserve an opportunity.
I agree.
Who deserves an opportunity more, Adrian Martinez or Tim Boyle?
Obviously, Adrian Martinez.
Exactly. And now there's one less spot for him.
Here's the other perspective to consider, and I'm at a point where I think I'm coming around to this. I almost respect what Tim Boyle's been able to do. This is generational bag chasing. I am amazed that he has been able to fake it. He's not even making it. He just keeps faking it until he keeps faking it more. And he continues to get more and more opportunities. This is a guy who at UConn threw 1 touchdown and 13 interceptions over 3 years. And then he went to the FCS level. So he was unplayable at a mid-tier FBS school, not even Power 4, Power 5, whatever you want to call it, mid-tier. And he was unplayable, goes to the FCS and is a bad FCS quarterback, goes 4-7, throws more interceptions and touchdowns. A guy like that should be selling cars. He shouldn't be getting an NFL opportunity, but he did. and he got an NFL opportunity, and then he was bad. And then he got another NFL opportunity, and he was worse. And then he got another NFL opportunity, Mike. And now here we are, and he's been in the league for what, 6 years?
This will be his 8th year.
8 years. 8 years. He's in the NFL for 8 years.
Seven. Sorry.
Whatever. 7 years. I can't even be mad. I respect it. I respect the hustle. I respect the ability that he has to just convince NFL teams that he can play quarterback at the NFL level. I've said this before. Shout out SUNY Cortland. I'm a graduate of SUNY Cortland. I watched their quarterback. They play in Division III, defending D3 national champs, by the way. They play in Division III. Cortland's quarterback, Zach Boyes, is better than Tim Boyle. I've watched them play. I refuse to believe that if you stuck Zach Boyes in a training camp, that he would not come out looking better than Tim Boyle. I refuse to believe that. But here Tim Boyle is 7 years into his NFL career, and he's still going. He's 3 years away from getting like the max pension. Like once you get 10 years, that pension goes way up. If he hits that mark, I mean,
don't you get like insurance coverage for life or something like that? Or that's baseball.
I don't know. It's generational bag chasing. I don't think we're ever going to see anything like this again. The fact that he continues to get NFL opportunities, I'm now rooting for him. I think I've come around. I've come full circle on this. I'm no longer mad. I want to see how long he can keep this charade going because it's crazy. It is truly mind-boggling, and I'm impressed. I'm honestly impressed. Good for Tim Boyle.
And I know I brought up him and Nathan Peterman and stuff like that. Nathan Peterman at Pitt threw 47 touchdowns and 15 picks in 2 years. That's really good.
College. And a good school, an ACC school.
He was a legitimate prospect, Nathan. Yes. He sucks, but he was a legitimate prospect.
He was a 4th, 5th round pick, Nathan Peterman?
5th.
Yeah, 5th round pick.
Now, it's funny, too, because you're like, does he have a super strong arm? No. In fact, it's below average, really below average.
There's nothing. No redeeming qualities.
He's big, but a lot of other quarterbacks are big.
Yes.
A 4.77. Does he look like he runs a 4.77 40-yard dash?
Oh.
Does he look like he runs a 5.77?
Oh my God, man!
I mean, he could pick up a playbook well. Well, you're supposed to. You're a quarterback.
That's coach. Make him a coach.
Make him a coach then.
Make him an assistant quarterback's coach.
Well, he's a good guy to hang around with. Well, don't sign your quarterback if they're cool to hang around with. What is this? A preschool?
How did he start 2 games?
We got line leaders and stuff too.
How did he start 2 games for the Jets last year? How?
He almost started more.
How did he start 2 games?
And then, here's another great quote. I sent this to Justin, too, because this made me laugh.
Yeah.
Knowing what happened. Chris Greer on Tim Boyle signing the Dolphins. Mike likes him. I don't know how. Mike McDaniel. Obviously, in Houston with a similar scheme. It's not okay.
It's similar enough, I guess.
With Jets, we saw, period. Not a sentence.
He didn't want to finish what he saw.
Or just the fact that they saw something.
They saw he existed, and they're like, hey, that's a quarterback.
Just watching him, Mike and Daryl Bevel, felt really good about adding him. Good locker room guy.
Wait a minute. Daryl Bevel. Hold on. Didn't he cross paths with him in fucking Detroit? That's why Tim Boyle. They had Daryl Bevel as their quarterback's coach, and 100%.
OC.
Yep. He crossed paths with Tim Boyle in Detroit.
No.
Bevel. Yep.
And now he's been over on so many teams that he knows everybody.
Wait a minute. No, I don't even think they technically crossed paths. Boyle got there a year later.
So then what's he?
I don't know. I mean, Bevel also was with the Packers, but before Boyle got there. I don't know, man.
2005 he was with the Packers.
Maybe it's still some connection. Maybe there's some weird connection in the coaching staff that we're missing too.
But good locker room guy. Justin, he got cut in the middle of the year. I still believe – I know this is going to sound like Aaron Rodgers conspiracy. I believe – remember when that story came out about Zach Wilson doesn't want to start?
Yes. You think that was Tim Boyle?
I guarantee that Tim Boyle leaked – because who else would know that and who else would benefit by leaking that except him who would start next week? And why did they cut him immediately after? There is no proof you can show me to erase that in my mind. I believe that happened.
He's
not a good locker room guy.
He's such a good locker room guy that he became Zach Wilson's confidant. He thought he could tell him everything. I'm not endorsing this conspiracy theory, by the way. I just think it's funny and I'm going along with it.
I think it's true. I don't care what you think. I believe there's too many dots connecting.
It's truly absurd, man. Again, I think I've come around though. I'm happy for him. I want to see him continue to do this. How old is he now, Tim Boyle?
29. He'll be 30 in October.
He turns 30 in October, and he's still going to be in the NFL. I mean, if you could have told me that after seeing what his college numbers were at UConn and Eastern Kentucky, I mean, Jesus Christ, man. That's nuts.
Detroit should have been the end of it. Green Bay, okay, fine. You take a chance. Great preseason, third, fine. Detroit, he plays, he's terrible. Okay, that should have been it. That should have been it. And he's got 4 teams after that.
Yeah. I mean, he should have never gotten a college opportunity or an NFL opportunity. And I don't want to say that. Like, so you know how many quarterbacks get signed to or get rookie minicamp opportunities like every year? So many. Like every team invites 40-something players to rookie minicamp, usually a few quarterbacks, and the 99% of them don't get signed. I don't even think Tim Boyle, based on his college resume, was good enough to get a rookie minicamp opportunity. Every single quarterback that the Jets brought in for rookie minicamp this year, which, by the way, Andrew Peasley was one of them. He was not originally signed by the team. He was signed after rookie minicamp. All of the guys that the Jets brought in for rookie minicamp, they all had significantly better college numbers than Tim Boyle. Also, Sam McGuavin is signing with the Jets practice squad per Zach Rosenblatt. And so you talk for a sec. I'm going to update the practice squad tracker. If anybody, I should have plugged this in the beginning of the show. If anyone wants to keep up to date with all of the Jets waiver wire moves, practice squad moves, we have a tracker. It is live on the site right now. Very easy to find. We also had our 53-man roster tracker going yesterday too, but the practice squad tracker is live on the site right now.
Tim Boyle graduated high school in 2012. So when he graduated high school, Whitney Houston had just passed away. Jeremy Lin was doing Linsanity. The first Avengers just came out, the first one, way back when. Gangnam Style was the #1 song, wow. And that dude jumped out of the plane. Like, remember out of space, the guy who jumped out of space?
Oh, my God, yes, yeah, I do remember that.
That happened. In that time span, from then to now, he has started and won 4 games.
Wow.
All of which were at Eastern Kentucky, which he, again, threw more picks and interceptions.
Yep. He didn't win a single game at UConn. I think he went like 0-6.
0-8, 1 touchdown and 8 one touchdown pass and 8 starts. Even the 11 picks are one thing. 1 touchdown and 8 starts.
13 picks.
13 picks. I'll even forgive that because you're not playing with NFL guy. 1 and 8 starts.
Truly ridiculous. It's whatever, man. I think I've come around. I've come around and I'm now impressed and just I'm happy for the guy. I want him to continue to fool NFL teams into thinking that he could play at the NFL level and just, keep getting that bag, man. Keep getting your money. I keep getting those paychecks. I will never be upset at a dude who, he seems like a cool guy. Maybe he's a nice guy. Everyone says he is.
Fans of the show might remember my younger brother, Dominic, who's 8 now. He has not lived and seen Tim Boyle win a game.
Oh my God.
It hasn't happened in his lifetime.
But there's still a chance. There's still, because honestly, if we're going to talk about this from Tim Boyle's perspective, what's a better landing spot than Miami? I mean, Tua has an injury history, and it's not like their backup Skylar Thompson is anything good. This is probably the worst backup quarterback room in the NFL, and that's saying a lot considering there's a backup quarterback room with Jarrett Stidham and Zach Wilson. This is worse. This is
so that's what I'm saying. Like he picks spots where he gets to play too.
Right. Of all the quarterbacks that they could have signed to their practice squad in a quarterback room that is, genuinely, they need some help there in the backup quarterback room. They bring in Tim Boyle. How?
55.2 passer rating. So with that, I think, because I could go on for another hour, but thank you for tuning into the Jet Press podcast. Rosters are pretty much finalized, and the 49ers game is almost here, which I'm tepid about because of all the teams to start the year against. Monday night, San Francisco on the road. That's tough. But hey, you want to win the Super Bowl, you probably got to beat them at some point. So we will get excited for that next week when we do our little preview. But as always, you can find us on, all the places, Apple, Google, Spotify. We're on all those spots wherever you get your podcasts, and YouTube. You can subscribe and like. Justin, feel free to, now that my rant is done, I haven't a tear left to shed. You can.
We were ranting so hard. I just want to get to a couple of comments. We were ranting so hard. Brian in chat said that the Hail Mary was actually his tryout with the Dolphins. They laughed so hard they thought they should reward him. Honestly, maybe. I'm open to all possibilities at this point. And then Gary, of course, pointing out on Facebook, said that they cut Mike White and signed Tim Boyle. Make it make sense. I don't know, man.
I said that immediately.
Just to be the devil's advocate, they cut Mike White from the active roster and then signed Boyle to the practice squad. So it's not 1 for 1, But yes, the optics of cutting Mike White and bringing in Tim Boyle as his essential replacement is pretty wild. And then the mad chatter finishing off saying, we want Adrian Martinez. We do. As of right now, there's been no update on that.
He's made me dislike the state of Connecticut. Holy.
Wow. Don't say it on the entire state. Come on, man.
Listen here, Connecticut. I covered a game once at UConn Stadium, a soccer game, and the pregame spread was shrink-wrapped sandwiches. That is unacceptable.
Sure. Blame the entire
It's like somebody's mom made it for soccer practice. That's not how you treat
all right, before we get
customers.
Before we get fully off the rails, yeah, I will plug it one more time. I'll plug a couple things. On the Jet Press YouTube channel, we do have a couple of interviews that came out, I believe, last week. One that Mike did with Ian O'Connor talking about the Aaron Rodgers biography that was just released. That is really, really good. You should check out both the book and check out the interview. There's the book right there. And we also had another interview with friend of the show, Thomas Morstead. I believe this was the 5th time that we've talked to Thomas. Great dude. Gave some really good insight. Also gave a really good quote about a specific segment of that book in which Morstead talked about, or Rodgers and Morstead talked about a phone conversation that they had after Rodgers' injury last year. Definitely don't want to miss that. And then again, one last time, check out the trackers that we got going live on the Jet Press website right now, because of course we have a website. If you didn't know that, jetpress.com. thejetpress.com. We have a tracker running live, tracking all of the practice squad additions the Jets make. There have been 7 reported signings so far. We'll not only be keeping up to date with every single signing, but we'll be giving analysis for every single move that the Jets make today. So definitely check that out. And as always, thank you all for joining us on the show today. You can follow Mike on Twitter at @ByMikeLuciano. Follow me on Twitter at Justin T. Fried. Follow Jet Press at the Jet Press. Download the Jet Press podcast wherever you get your podcast. Check us out on YouTube. Subscribe, hit that notification bell. You guys know what to do. We stream live every Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern time. Thank you all for listening to Jet Press Podcast. I've been Justin Fried. That's been Mike Luciano. We will see you guys next week when we're finally previewing Week 1 against the 49ers.
I can't believe it's here. After months of roster talk, it's football time.